This time on the Fast Lane with Isaiah, we're discussing the timeline with the lawsuit NASCAR versus 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports. Please subscribe, please like this video, and please hit that notification bell so you never miss another video on the Fast Lane with Isaiah. A lot of y'all are not subscribed, so please subscribe. So this all started on September 6th when 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports held out of NASCAR's 2025 charter agreement. They did not sign it. They believed that the teams were not making enough revenue and that the business side of the sport could be better. And so, chartered teams make millions and millions more dollars than open teams who do not have charters. It provides charter teams with an incentive to get charters, and they also qualify for every race. Compared to open teams, they might not qualify based on their speed in qualifying. And so, it is very important to have a charter. It's like a franchise. It allows you to compete, but it also provides you millions and millions of dollars of an investment into the sport. So on October 2nd, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports sue NASCAR for being a monopoly. And then on October 9th, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports file an injunction so they can compete as charter teams in 2025. So they can make millions and millions of more dollars. And then NASCAR responds to 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports' expedited discovery request, essentially saying that they plan to compete as 32 teams, considering that the other teams signed it and they have to hold on to their end of the contract. So they can't allow for 36 cars based off of how the contract is worded with them suing NASCAR. So NASCAR responds to 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports' preliminary injunction request by saying it contradicts themselves by filing for this where they can compete but not yet have signed the agreement and sue NASCAR at the same time. And so on October 30th, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports addresses NASCAR's key points that they made in their preliminary injunction request when NASCAR responded to that request. And then on November 1st, judge denies 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports' request for an expedited discovery. And then we move on throughout this case. On November 4th, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports' lawyers are saying that they could lose millions and millions of dollars in sponsorship money if they are not allowed charters, which gives them a little bit more, in court against NASCAR to be able to compete as charter teams. And then on November 8th, a judge denies 2311 Racing and FRM's preliminary injunction motion. So that is a very, very big point. But then on November 12th, the teams file an appeal so they can. The injunction is still going on to this day. For them to be able to compete in that is still going on to this day. There's new news on this recently, and we're going to get to that. On November 20th, 2311 Racing says they will expand to a third car. Also on that day is when the preliminary injunction was dropped. So FRM, as we came to know it, refiled the injunction on November 27th. And then on December 2nd, NASCAR says that the whole lawsuit should be dismissed. At this point, I feel like NASCAR is saying they're being a little bit defensive in this case, and I believe that NASCAR did not have the upper hand at this point, even though the injunction was going their way. I feel like it was a pretty balancing act. It was hard to tell. The trial was very far away at this point. I believed at this point no one really had the upper hand. It was just swaying in each direction. And then, as we go on throughout the month, December 18th, the judge rules that NASCAR must allow the teams to sign the charter agreement and transfer the Stewart-Haas Racing charters over to those teams. December 23rd is when 2311 filed their own injunction, since they did not realize they had to file their own since they filed their original one with FRM. December 31st, FRM acquires the SHR charter, and they officially expand the third car on January 2nd. And then as we move on here, on February 12th, NASCAR files appeals brief. They give information to the courts. March 5th, NASCAR countersues 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports, claiming that their end has antitrust violations. And as 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports, as you've probably learned throughout this video, was not happy when they did that. So on March 27th, they seek to drop the countersuit. And then on April 7th, 2311 Racing requests information from Formula One, IndyCar, NBA, NFL, and NHL to show that NASCAR's business model is not the best in sports. And then as we move on to this, May 2nd, the NFL responds, and they do not get information from the league. On May 9th is when I can say that the momentum was completely on NASCAR's side. That's the day that the appeals court heard the appeal of NASCAR from the December injunction. And then on June 5th, it is announced that NASCAR wins in the appeals court and that the two teams are set to lose their charters, which means millions and millions, I cannot stress that enough, of dollars that the teams are losing. It's more than just a piece of paper. It is millions and millions of dollars. On June 30th, the momentum keeps going on NASCAR's side. IndyCar denies providing information to the teams. And then as we go on to July 9th, the Fourth Circuit Courts of Appeal denies a rehearing for the teams to be allowed to keep their charters. On July 14th, the teams yet again file another injunction against NASCAR to allow them to keep their charters. And then that brings us to the current day. I hope I made a little bit of sense. I'm not the greatest legal expert, but I hope this helps out your understanding at least a little bit. On July 16th, this is the last thing, NASCAR responds and says that IndyCar teams and Xfinity teams are interested in the charters and that they will possibly, after Indianapolis and Dover and when it is heard again, that they'll possibly sell off 2311 and FRM's charters, which could be very big news for those two teams. As always, please like and subscribe for more great content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video in the Fast Lane with Isaiah. Thank you for watching.